To tell us more about the review in that process and who is being honored tonight, I'd like to introduce our Editor-in-Chief, David Jameson.
Thank you very much. And we're lucky to have our best award honor tonight. And this is Gilmore Crosby. And his article was called Beyond DEIB and Beyond, and then dash a refresh Lewinian approach, and he brought some new sides of Lewin into his work, and we are really pleased, and I'm very honored to give it to Gil. Gil, this is your award for the best article that you had, and we thank you very much for all your writing.
Okay, well, I'm honored, and I have a few things I'd like to say. And so, really, I've heard people talking throughout this conference about the condition of the world today, of our own government, and really the struggle of autocracy versus democracy. And I feel pain about that myself, and also have a lot of hope that someday we'll be together. No, that wasn't it. Someday we will have a firm commitment in the United States of democratic principles and a rejection of autocracy. And I don't think that this country's ever really arrived at that. So, now that's relevant partially because of the roots of OD. Kurt Lewin fled autocracy and put his brain to work trying to understand it. And how did Hitler get elected in Germany? And what were the methods used? Like scapegoating minorities. Of course, Lewin was Jewish. He got to the U.S. because he had a PhD, but he still had trouble finding a home here in a university, and he could not get his mother out of Germany. And the Nazis executed her in a concentration camp. Even though he had money and did everything he could to save her from that fate. So Lewin got here and applied his social science to race relations. And that's really what this article was about. And by the way, I just believe that many OD people think of Lewin as like a historical figure and maybe know a little bit about like freeze, change, and freeze again. It's not refreeze. And don't get it that the basics of Lewin's social science, not only do they apply to change, but they apply to the reconstruction of Germany. The State Department was influenced by Lewin. Instead of telling Germany how to have a government, they instead did an amazing job of just helping Germany, people all over the country, influence what shape their democracy took, which is quite different than our own. So they applied the basic principles of Lewinian change. He never called it OD, which is that the people who are facing the challenge are the right people to come up with solutions. Doesn't mean their solutions have to be perfect. But if they come up with, when people come up with solutions, Chris and I just worked with, 500 people in a manufacturing plant in Tennessee, rural Tennessee. Mostly those people, of course, were hourly workers. We worked with every intact group, the supervisor and their direct reports. And those people said, well, we can't get spare parts. there's holes in the floor, and we're moving these buggies. We need to fix the floor. They came up with solutions to what they could solve, and then they asked for help from the rest of the organization for things that were bigger than what they could solve. Like they couldn't just fix the floor themselves. But if the people who are facing challenges come up with solutions, then Lewin showed over and over again in his research, they're likely to get most of it done. You don't have to sell it to them. You don't have to be a cheerleader. You don't have to do a big analysis. I work with groups in half a day. First time I've met them, they're identifying what's in the way of getting things done, and they're coming up with solutions, and then they're going out the door implementing. So it doesn't take a long process or an expert model of OD where the OD person comes up with a recommendation to management and hands it off, or looks at data and interprets it. We work with surveys, but when we work with surveys, we have people that fill the thing out, look at it themselves, and come up with solutions. It's easy. It's just we help them with the process, and then it's easy work. And it's democratic. And it's democratic with structure. There is no freedom without structure. Dad, my father, Chris's father, 97-year-old dad, thought for years that was Dewey maybe, or Lewin that said that. I've searched and searched, so I decided it's Dad that said that. There is no freedom without structure. He's paraphrasing them, but so like Lewin, we work with the authority structure. And so back to this paper, then in 1946, he was in the state of Connecticut working on race relations. And he did it by including everybody who was willing to be included. So there was no, from one end of this political spectrum, we're going to come up with solutions and then try to somehow force them on the rest of the people. The people in charge of industry then were all white males. They were invited in. The people in charge of the newspapers, well, they were also all white males. They were invited in. And then there were a whole bunch of social workers and activists, and it was a black man who actually organized the whole thing. He worked for the state of Connecticut. But it was an inclusive approach. And that, I believe, is the only way to help people overcome their differences, is that you bring them together. You don't embarrass any of them. Hopefully you have methods like his T-group methodology, which helps people start to see each other as they are in the moment. And it doesn't matter if they're male, female, trans, black, white, or whatever. What really matters is, am I really getting this person now the way they want to be seen and understood? And am I being understood the way I want to be? And that gets down to the essence of each person's being human. But that's the big thing that was in this paper. It's how Lewin went at working on race relations. He also was a pioneer in Berlin in the 30s of including women in dialogue about social science. It was not normal in Berlin in the 1930s to even have students talk to professors, period. So Lewin didn't get to talk to many of his professors. But he had coffee shop conversations that went into the wee hours with everyone in his class, and many of them were women who went on to get PhDs and were prominent social scientists. So, okay, let me see. Dad wanted me to say something. He wanted you to know that right here at Gonzaga University, OD was done, Lewinian OD, where students, like 50 groups of students, were able to influence the administration of the university on things like whether women, the dormitories for women should have a curfew, even though the dormitories for men did not. And they got approval, and Dad set up the whole decision-making structure ahead of time. He wouldn't do work if the people in positions of authority weren't willing to seriously listen and then consider and make decisions, and of course explain if they turn something down. But that's how we work in organizations, with the authority structure. We don't need it to be flat. As a matter of fact, one of Dad's big projects was to go to Addie, Washington, where they had started a plant with no supervisors and they were losing money every year. And he helped them put supervisors in, so that there was clear authority in the system. Authority isn't about bossing people around if you're effective. It is being clear. It is holding people accountable if you have expectations and they aren't meeting them. If they're sticking their hands in the equipment instead of following safety protocols, whatever it is, you need authority in human systems. So, the other thing Dad wanted you to know was just 2 blocks over here is an Easy Loader boat trailer company. And in the early 1980s, he did work with all the hourly workers, every person in management there, and they came up with all kinds of ways to innovate on their products and save money, and they're still over there right now. I talked to a guy yesterday who was there when Dad was there, Randy Johnson. Not the same Randy Johnson that used to pitch for the Mariners, but the son of the founder, and they're making money. They're doing well. So that place has thrived ever since. I've said most of what I wanted to say. Lewin believed that humans had a long ways to go, and that we had created technology which might wipe us out. And of course, at the time, it was the dawn of the nuclear age. Now we have global warming to throw in the midst, and new forms of warfare and so on. And that the best hope for the future of humanity lay in social science that really was embedded in democratic principles of allowing people to influence as much as they can, and then having a structure for leadership to make decisions and so on. But absolutely no divide and conquer scapegoating. That's the playbook of totalitarian authoritarianism. The future, if we get there, will lie in collaboration and clarity, and that's what you can bring to that future. It's also what gets taught at the Leadership Institute of Seattle. That Dad started in 1969, and it ended in 2018, except Chris here said, no, we're going to start this again, and did all the work with the state of Washington, and is now the president, and we have our first class of students coming in, and it's T-group based, and it's based on the principles of Lewinian social science. And so that's an exciting thing that's happening right now. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry about this, but there's one more thing I wanted to say, and that's in my work on this paper and on a book I wrote that's similar, it's clear to me that autocracy was right here with the Virginia colony. It's been right here since the beginning of this nation. And they've always used race to divide and conquer. They've always used sexism to divide and conquer. This isn't new. This is something we've been struggling with all along. So actually, that gives me some hope. Because it's not like this is go to McCarthyism, go to segregation, go to slavery. I mean, there's been bad situations throughout time here. And we can do better.